Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Usagi Podjimbo podcast. That's right, we are back again with issue 2. I can't talk today. We are going to be talking about Shades of Green Part 2, as well as the short story Usagi's Garden. We are continuing with our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles / Usagi crossover with the second part. You know how it is. We had so much fun talking about the last one. We're going to talk about this one too, which I have some questions, which I did not know about, apparently. Some things I didn't know about, and they're kind of alluded to in this particular issue. So I was a little confused. I thought maybe we had a typo at one point, but no, we do not have a typo. Because I had to go look it up, because I wasn't for sure. I had to do a little background check on Usagi and the Turtles. But yeah, let's get into this particular issue. Hope you guys enjoy this episode of the podcast. Thanks for listening. If you want to help the podcast grow, share the podcast, tell your friends. That's the best way to help support the podcast, get the name out there. Leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast platform you like to leave a review on. You can leave me feedback on the Facebook page at Usagi Podjimbo, a Facebook podcast, a Usagi Yojimbo podcast. It's Usagi Yojimbo and Usagi Yojimbo podcast. Or you can leave me a feedback on Spotify. That's always welcomed feedback. I love feedback, getting feedback about the podcast and whatnot. I'll respond to you if you send me a question or something, But we get into this first part of this issue. We're looking at Volume 2, Issue 2, of the run done by Mirage. And we're going to get into this. Let's have some fun. So stay tuned, and I'll tell you what I think about this particular issue. So, a little, not feedback, a little backtracking in the story, a little previously on Usagi Yojimbo. Kakera is the new character we got. He is the mysterious wizard rat guy who the Neko ninjas are trying to get a hold of to bolster their ranks and help bring their name back to prominence, their clan name and whatnot. But we see our story starts out where we see these farmers, because they're at kind of like a farming village almost, and they're guarding Kakera. They're guarding the walls where Kakera is in the village, and we see the Neko ninjas sneaking around. I love this little like detail in the particular issue, where one of the guys is kind of like dozing off and falling asleep and whatnot, and we go to where the last issue ended, with the turtles being transported to the Usagi Yojimbo universe, and they're like, "Hey, where are we?" Michelangelo says, "Hey, turtles defense positions, And they're like, "Oh, look, is that Master Splinter?" And they're like, "Oh, no, look again, it's not him." And everybody is like at stance, almost like a Mexican standoff kind of situation, They're like, "Oh, is this another trick from the Foot Clan? This is, they got swords. What are we doing?" And Raph says, like, "Let's waste them, They're ready to fight, ready to go." Leo happens to be like, wait. Hold on. I know one of those guys. That's my buddy Usagi. And he like stops them from fighting Usagi and Gen. And he's like, "Hey, Usagi, it's good to see you." And he puts out his hand and gives him an old handshake. And Usagi actually bows in respect to Leonardo. The other turtles, still a little confused, they're like, "Hey, isn't that rabbit man Leo was talking about that one time?" And he was like, they're like, "Yeah, he said he ran into him about like 3 times before this," which I thought it was 2 times, apparently. But there's actually another short story where Leo and Usagi actually meet at one point. it was published after the other two. So, yeah, I have to go track that down now because I want to read it. If anybody has that one, and let me know if it's good or not, Or give me your opinion. And they're like, son of a gun, like, he was telling the truth. And they're like, so Leo says, like, what's going on? And they're like, who are your friends? This is Genosuke and Kakeri sensei, And Kakeri says, it's because of me. He gives them the spiel and tells them that, the entire village is surrounded by the Nekos, the Neko ninjas, and they determine that they're going to capture me and basically kill all the witnesses. So, of course, the turtles jump in to help because they are heroes themselves. They're like, of course we'll help, and one of them, I don't know which one it is. I think it's Mikey. I'm not for sure. It's hard to tell. The only one I really know is Leo because you can see his weapons in this picture. You can't see Donatello's because I don't know why. Maybe because he's holding his bow staff. I don't know. And he's like, what have we got ourselves into? And Kakeri says, y'all aren't going to be enough. We're going to need more people, like more bodies to help. Maybe we should go summon some frogs. So I love the pool it's not a deep cut, but like a cut like reference to the turtles, which they reference the punk frogs at this point. So I would have loved to seen the punk frogs get pulled into this and see how they react to the Usagi universe. That would have been so funny to see. I mean, I love seeing the turtles, but like the punk frogs, that would have been a definite like a left field turn, like a switcheroo type of situation. So we see the guards. I think this is the guard from earlier who was like sleepy, tired. He actually is like, hey, I can't believe we have to do this. We're not sentries. We're just farmers. We shouldn't be doing this. Like, why do we have to keep the place on lockdown and whatnot and guard the fences? And we actually see the Neko ninjas spying in on the turtles and Usagi. And the Neko ninjas actually end up killing all of the farmers / guards in this particular area. The turtles and Usagi and Gin find out, and they go chase in a really cool chase scene, might I add. The two Neko ninjas that were spying on Usagi and friends jump over this fence. Usagi cuts through. Leo jumps over the broken fence. And one of the Neko ninjas decides to basically stay behind, act as a distraction as the other one leaves. And he's like, hi, yeah, I'm going to get you. And he actually throws a bunch of shuriken ninja stars at Leo. Leo blocks him and whatnot. And he actually blocks him, and Usagi goes in to take down this ninja. And he's like, stop, don't get up, stay down. And he actually hit him, and then the Neko ninja actually gets up, and Usagi actually cuts him from behind, and he actually ends up killing him, which Usagi says that, that's a waste of a life. We could have, questioned him and whatnot, but unfortunately, I guess he accidentally killed him, or he killed him out of reflex, I think, or instinct, because he got up. It was a him versus me situation. It seemed like, as they're surrounding the dead Neko ninja, Raph is kind of like, oh, I guess we can't question him. He's kind of bummed out about it seems like. And then Donatello says that, hey, where's Leo? What's going on? And meanwhile, the second Neko ninja reaches the deep woods, and we see him running through the woods, trying to run back to wherever he's stationed. And he runs pretty far, and Leo actually says, man, this guy has doubled back so many times, it's hard to keep track of where he's actually been. Luckily, he is marking his trail, and he actually sees the Neko ninja go to a ruined temple. And he's like, it seems like a quiet enough place. Maybe he'll do a little looking around, Leo says. And he actually finds a tripwire of some kind. And he notices that there's sentries placed in the trees. He actually, Leo says that he's not going to be sticking around because obviously he is outnumbered at this moment. And he can't really do anything about it. But he actually did find out where the Nekos were stationed. We see the Neko ninja who came back alive. He came back. His name's Iji, and Iji is reporting back from the rat. The rat is back in the village apparently, and they're like, "Hey, where's your partner? What's going on?" And they're like, "Oh, he was killed." And one of the ninjas in the background say, "A ninja's duty in life is death." And we see Gunji, and Gunji is like, "I'm overseeing this operation. You will report directly to me." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to report directly to you." Okay. So later on, he does that. He does that in a part of the compound. He says there are 7 of them. There's the old rat, the 4 Kama, which are turtle ninjas, and the rhino, and the long-eared rabbits. And Gunji is like, "Man, I can't believe we have this other clan in the like in our like business, basically. They must be formidable indeed." Later on, after he shoos the Neko ninja away, the I guess you could say the guy who gave him the information, he's talking to Chizo. I said that completely wrong. It's Chizu. I don't know why I blanked on her name. Chizu. Chizu tells Genji that this operation is getting too complex. I say we abandon it, and he's like, no, Chizu, we're not going to abandon it. We're going to succeed, and when we do, the Neko clan will turn from you and look to me for leadership. So they're fighting for leadership with the Neko clan. I'm guessing like the Neko clan at this moment kind of looks to Chizu, in a sense, and Gunji is like, "Oh, follow me. We're gonna attack tonight. We're gonna attack the village tonight. We got this. We're gonna capture the rat. Our agents in the field will continue guarding the borders. We got this. We will have no more of these strange ninjas sneaking in." And I guess he's referring to the turtles, And we see Usagi and the turtles. They're kind of outside, like sort of contemplating and talking about like the perimeter and stuff like that. Do we need more people like on the borders of the town? Looking out like for for the ninjas that are going to attack possibly. And they don't have enough people, and they basically have farmers, so that's what they get. And we see Usagi talks about, he's like, "Hey, can't you use your like wizard powers, Kakera, to see what they're planning?" And he's like, "You must be misunderstanding. My abilities are not magic, apparently. They're more like a symphony with the tides of nature." And I guess this is Michelangelo saying this. He kind of jokes. He's like, "Oh, kind of like a Zen kind of thing." And Kakera's like, "Yeah, in a way, it's kind of like a Zen thing." And I love this next scene where Mikey says, like, "Oh, this is fantastic. We're basically in feudal Japan with like 17th century Japan, except with animals instead of humans." And like Gen gets a little upset. He's like, "Who are you calling an animal?" And he's like, how Mikey starts asking all these questions, like, how did you evolve? How is a horse just a horse, but a rabbit is a person? Like, what's going on? I guess I've had these questions too, Mikey, as a Mike to another Mike. I've had these questions as well. But we don't really get that, because Usagi's like, we don't really get like answers, which I kind of feel like, I guess it's a good thing we don't really get answers, because I feel like if we start to think about it too hard, things might break apart, and I think my brain might start to hurt from thinking too much at this moment. But he's like, "Evolve? What do you mean? I don't understand. We are creations of the gods, as are all things around us, And he's like, "Yeah, but like Mikey says, like, "Yeah, but like a bunny as big as a rhino. What about a talking cat, talking dog? All these things. Usagi just doesn't really understand what he's trying to talk to him about." And Mikey's like, yeah, like we were like created on accident. But how like were you guys created? And like, do you guys even have tails? Stuff like that. And Gin gets upset. He's like, hey, don't get so personal. At least we wear clothes. So like they're kind of starting to get like in a little sort of an argument, it seems like, because Kakera says, hey, stop the squabbling and look at that. And then there's actually a big fire going up. It's like a quilt like maker's house. And they're like, oh my God, there's a fire. They determine that that's actually a distraction. We find out that that's actually somebody's house, and they've lost everything. Usagi pulls them back and tells them, don't be a fool, you'll be killed. But the turtles and Usagi jump in. Well, 3 of the turtles, Usagi and Gin, jump in and say, we got to guard the villagers, alert the villagers, there's an attack elsewhere. And we see all these Neko ninjas, like, basically fall into the town. Like, they just come running and rushing into the town. And one thing I actually really do like about this, and one thing I like about Stan Sakai art in general and the way he lays out the comics, he really does like big all-out brawls, like fights, like really, really well. Like I love this scene where Usagi and the turtles are fighting. It looks really cool and very like dynamic, but everything seems to be in place and seems to have like a reason for being there. I love this one scene, this one little panel where Donnie hits this guy and like blood or something pops out of the guy's mask, and like Mikey like thunks one of them on the head with like his nunchucks, and like you see the guy's face like kind of bug out, And the ninjas actually end up using some smoke bombs to create a diversion after that, and we find out that the villagers need help because they're actually attacking the south wall, and we see Gunji and his men doing just that. They're trying to capture Kakera. As Gunji and his men are going after Kakera. I always say Kakera, it's Kakera. I'm going to mispronounce that name a lot. I like this scene where the villagers like, should we help them? You heard what they said, stay out of their way. And they're like just cowering in a corner, but I love that scene. It's kind of comical almost. And Gunji actually corners Kakera, and he's like, you can't stand up to the 5 best men I have in my clan. And this is where we get this dynamic intro from Leo. Leo shows up and he says, but maybe I can help. He like jumps over the fence and comes in and starts attacking and fighting the Neko ninja, which is a really, really cool scene. And I love this one scene where Leo's fighting them, and he gets ninja dust in the eye, and his eyes start to burn. Leo was not prepared for the pocket sand attack, just saying. And he actually gets a pretty good slash on his back, and he gets pretty injured. Back at the north gate, all the ninja are gone, so the turtles, the rest of the turtles actually go to the southern part of the village and find that Leo is hurt. Usagi runs to him and actually says, my friend, don't exert yourself. We see like blood coming out of Leo's back, and we see them, and they're all mad. And Leo proclaims that they captured Kakera, and we see back at the Neko ninjas hideout, which I love this panel of like just showing the different areas where they kind of had to travel to get to the Neko ninjas hideout. And I love seeing like the one standalone Neko ninja. He's like on guard duty. There's no other guards, just the one guard standing in the tree. just thinking about that like kind of makes me laugh. Like their numbers are so dwindled they can't only have one guard outside. Gunji is actually happy that his plan actually succeeded, and Chizu is actually like, I don't know about this. We still got to get the rat out of the area and get him away from his guards and whatnot. And Chizu's basically kind of like gloating at this point, because he succeeded, and where Chizu like really couldn't succeed in this point. Like, we see him talking, and he's like, I'm basically going to be taking over the Neko clan, and you can basically be my consort, which is his wife. And you're like, y'all, you can come sit by my side, which angers Chizu like a lot as Gunji sips his tea, and he kind of like jokingly like smirks at her, and Gunji's just not like a really good guy. I don't like Gunji, but I like Chizu. Chizu's a pretty badass chick, He's like, oh, leaving so soon, because obviously Gunji can tell that Chizu is upset, and he's actually starts laughing, and that actually ends our issue for this second part of Shades of Green. I actually really like this issue, how we got more in depth into like Chizu and stuff like that, and like the inner workings of the Neko ninjas, which is really cool. I liked that also that the stereotypical like superhero team up misunderstanding didn't really truly happen, where like the turtles didn't fight Usagi and vice versa. I like that. It's kind of like throwing the superhero trope on its head in that aspect, where they kind of like, oh yeah, the misunderstanding is over in like a page. They don't like draw it out like they're not enemies at first and whatnot. They just kind of are a little weary of each other at first. But the fights in this were amazing. I love seeing the turtles and Usagi and friends team up with each other. It was fucking awesome to see. It doesn't really seem to have like obviously like in the long run, I don't really remember if this crossover has too much like merit or effect on the story at large in the Usagi Yojimbo universe. If I remember correctly, I don't remember exactly. But it's cool to see them cross over and whatnot with Usagi. Because we get it a couple times where they cross over, and there was one that I didn't even know about. Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It's definitely doesn't quell my expectations of what I expect the crossover to be like, because sometimes crossovers can be a little bland, I guess you could say, a little bit, like everybody gets their shit in, goodbye and go home. There's a little bit of stakes in this, with Leo getting injured and stuff like that. Obviously, like Leo isn't gonna die, but it's cool to see like, some little stakes have happened in the issue itself. But now we are moving on to the short story Usagi's Garden, which is a short story. It's like a little like a backup story with this issue, it seems, if I remember correctly. So yeah, let's get into that. So we continue with issue 2 of volume 2 of the Mirage Run with Usagi's Garden, and this one takes place actually way back in the past when Usagi was actually still under the tutelage of the warrior hermit, I guess you would call him, Katsuichi, and they are actually working on a garden in this particular issue. We see Katsuichi, he's using his hoe to basically till the ground, and Usagi is basically dumping water on it, because if you remember in one of the early stories, Usagi was sent out to get water at one point, which was really funny, because Katsuichi kind of like messed with him and stuff like that. And Usagi says, "Sensei, why do we even bother growing our own food? The villagers give us some of their supply produce in exchange for your advice and help against the marauders." And Katsuichi says, Do you not think it's wise to depend so much on others, Usagi? What if there is no surplus this year? It is better to rely on your own resources when you are able to. And Usagi comes back. He's like, "But yeah, we could be doing that, or we could be doing some sword stuff and samurai stuff and whatnot." And Katsuichi comes back at him. He's like, "Don't you think a lesson can be learned from gardening, though?" And he's like, "No, I don't think that can happen." Usagi is kind of like a little. He's a little pushy at times, it seems like. Well, at least young Usagi, because he really seems like he wants to learn. And he kind of gets a little scolded, a little scolding, and Katsuichi says, "You gotta learn to respect the work one does and the results it produces. No matter, now go fetch me some water," he says. And so Usagi goes and fetches some water. Then the next day, Katsuichi is up. He's boiled some water, and he let Usagi sleep in through the morning. Usagi wakes up, and he is, as Katsuichi said, he boiled some water. So Usagi goes and makes some tea, and Katsuichi actually gives him a bag of seeds, and he tells Usagi to actually go start his own garden. And Usagi's like, "But why? Why do I have to go start my own garden? Our single plot, it provides enough food for both of us." And Katsuichi says, "Call it a test. If you fail, you must leave my training." And Usagi basically obliges this, and he's like, I'm gonna show him. Sensei wants me to grow a garden. I'll grow a garden. I'll be raising like the best plants, vegetables ever. You'll be the most succulent, tasty vegetables around. And he starts planting his seeds and whatnot and tending to his garden. I love this scene where Usagi, it's like a little montage of sorts where Usagi is like basically doing all the day-to-day tasks, keeping the Tokage out, watering, digging, and tilling the ground and whatnot. And he actually sees that, Sensei's plot, on the other hand, is doing very well, very well. What? It's been weeks. Why hasn't mine done very well? And he's like, "Oh, Usagi, how is your garden doing?" Katsuichi says, "It's just fine. It's nice. It's quiet, and coming along nicely. Quite coming along nicely and whatnot." And Usagi kind of goes into like a mini like tantrum, and he's like, why isn't my stuff growing? It's still nothing. Sensei wants to see my garden tomorrow. Come on, my garden won't grow." And he's like shaking his fist at the garden. He's like, screaming out loud. He's like, "Why won't you grow? I can't take this anymore." It reminds me of the Happy Gilmore scene where he's like, "Ball, why won't you go in your hole? Go to your home." That's what it really reminds me of. So as Usagi is yelling his little heart out, he actually stops his crying and belly aching, and he's like, "Oh, the village." He gets like this smirk on his face, and he's like, "The village, the farmers, they have a lot. There's in the valley, they have a lot of vegetables. I could go down there and take a feed tonight and plant them in my garden. They won't know what's happened. They've actually had like a good season." And Usagi wakes up after an hour. Sensei must be asleep at this moment. He actually puts his sandals on and goes to the door, and he's like, "Haha, I made it." Quiet as a shadow. He won't suspect a thing. Little does Usagi know that Katsuichi is actually awake. He's playing possum at this moment, according to this panel. Usagi goes, he's like, "Sensei has never bothered to look at my garden. He won't know what it actually is, or what I've grown. He'll be amazed, and I'll show him tomorrow. I'll show him." And he actually gets to the village, the outskirts of the village, and he sees all these like really like good plants, like vegetables and stuff like that have been grown by the villagers. And he's like, "Oh, somebody is coming." And we see these two farmers. They're talking about how they had like a fine harvest this year. They're brothers, actually, and they should. He like one of them's like, yeah, we should. We labored hard, we have stuff to show for our hard work and whatnot, and stuff like that. And one of them says that he can sleep for a week because he's worked so much, and whatnot. And as these guys pass, and Usagi ends up hearing like what these workers have been going through, he's like, he kind of like brushes it off a little bit, and he goes to actually get the vegetables, and he kind of struggles to get the vegetables. But we go to the next day, and Katsuichi is woken by Usagi. Usagi actually tells him good morning, and Katsuichi's like, "Oh, you're up early," and Usagi gives him some tea and a confession. He confesses that he has fertilized and hoed and watered and weeded his garden, but nothing has grown whatsoever. And he actually went last night to the village to go steal some vegetables and stuff. But when he got there, he heard a couple farmers actually talking about how hard they worked and whatnot. So he couldn't actually go through with it from taking the vegetables. And as Katsuichi is sipping on his tea, he actually laughs and he's like, I would have been surprised if something had grown. You see, because I boiled the seeds. They were dead when I gave them to you. But this is excellent tea. Thanks for making this tea and whatnot. And Usagi proclaims, "Oh, but it was a test." It's like, "Oh yeah, it wasn't a test of farming. It was a test of character. Now fetch me some water. We have a gardening to do." And he's like, "Yes, Sensei. Yes, I'm gonna go fetch you some water." And that is the end of our short story with young little Usagi. This issue was actually a lot of fun. I say that about like a lot of the stories, but this one, it was like fun. I like seeing Katsuichi and Usagi, young Usagi, I guess you could say. So we only got them a little bit in like one story at the very beginning in the first chunk of the series. I think two, maybe, I can't remember. I think it was one. I don't know. And it's always cool to see them and like see like their dynamic and whatnot. And Katsuichi sort of being like a father figure to Usagi at points and mentoring him. And it was a fun issue. I really enjoyed it. I'm not the hugest fan of when Stan Sakai like splits his issues into two different stories. I kind of wish he would just tell a story. But I kind of get what he's going for, like splitting it up and whatnot. It's not my favorite, this thing. Like I would like to tell like a long form story or like a one-off story or whatnot. I'm not a big fan of like the splitting of the issue. Sometimes I feel like it might take away in my enjoyment of that issue at points. But it's just a little nitpick I personally have. It's not like a huge detriment to the particular issue itself. It was a good issue overall, or story overall. I enjoyed it. It was cute, and I like it that Katsuichi is still like messing with Usagi, like with like every point he kind of gets, even though he's like giving him a lesson. He likes to mess with them and like play mind games with them, but like they're like good mind games. They're not like bad mind games and whatnot. But yeah, it's a fun issue, and we're moving on to actually the last part of the Ninja Turtles crossover in the next episode, as well as another young Usagi story with Autumn we're going to be talking about. So thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this sort of longer format discussion that I'm trying my hand at when it comes to making these episodes. Hope you guys enjoyed and going more in depth into each issue / story. It's something new I'm trying out. But yeah, give me some feedback if you want to. Thanks for listening. Go share the podcast, and Stay safe out there. Go read some Usagi Yojimbo and have some fun. Peace out, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.